pushed it was because they're part of the TID project, so if you didn't deny it, they're part of the TID project, so that's why I wanted it.
So any further discussion on that? So we got a motion by Gary, seconded by Mike to adopt or to pass the amendment to the comprehensive plan. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. So next is discuss and consider ordinance 2024-08 rezoning the property at 321 James Avenue. So we just amended the comprehensive plan, which is the underlying village plan, to allow for residential in that location. This, I believe, is the ordinance change to truly rezone that.
We approve ordinance 2024-08.
Second.
Motion by Gary, seconded by Maxine. Any additional discussion on that at all? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. Okay. So that's done. Next is, sorry, I'm going back now because we can go back to old business, right? So now is discuss and consider 2024 interim financing for TID number 3 projects. So Brian, sorry.
Yep, all good. Anybody need a handout?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. And actually, I'm gonna hand them all out. Because one of them is relative. The second one,
Thank you.
you guys probably already have to print it.
Sir.
Alrighty. So just kind of walk through this. This is a continuation of our TID 3 amendment feasibility. One of the conversation topics starting back in fall of last year was amending the TID as a result of the cold drive and the fact that the original project plan had a development incentive amount that you guys are now passing. So it's kind of like, should we amend it? And then it's the other consideration of the TID is now performing and going to continue to perform well. Should we add projects? So the items tonight are for the note anticipation note, which is the plan to say we're coming up on our expenditure period here, September 21st. At that point in time, you either have to have a signed developers agreement. So we're keeping that process on task as it relates to cold drive. That has nothing to do with the note anticipation note. So we're going to have that signed development agreement by September 21st. We need to pay attention. Oh, it's just okay. The other element you could have is sign, contract to do the work. So for these projects, but that would mean you guys would have to go through the project, the whole process of bidding and everything prior to September 21st. Timelines in line with that. The third element that you can have to make an eligible project costs for all of these other projects that we've discussed up until this date is to secure financing. So I kind of walked through a process in another community that we worked with where they take out kind of a drawable note to say, as we determine what these projects that we're going to do through the remaining, next year and a half, we can draw on these funds once we've decided we're kind of done. We'll flip it to a long-term financing. So what we have before you tonight is kind of the note anticipation note or that drawable note. And what we're showing as well is kind of that maximum projects amount that we've been talking about in the range of 7 million and change. Again, this is drawable, so you don't have to do that, but understand you are setting.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Tornado warning, seek shelter until 7:30 p.m. for Green County. Southern Green County.
It doesn't say exactly.
Yeah.
Can stop at any time.
Just send it
It's always the vault to go into.
Yeah.
downstairs.
You have a basement.
All right, Brian.
No, all good, all good. So ultimately, kind of wrapping up there on the why we're here slide is we're trying to secure this financing. One thing that I just want to make sure is understood is, again, the drawability of this. But also when we discussed this in the feasibility portion, it was about $2 million of projects, non-extension. Anything more than that, the TIF would likely need to be, or the TID would need to be extended so that you can have additional years. What I'll mention with that, the extension kind of, in my mind, works like a drawable note. You're not actually committing to being open that time. You're just allowing the maximum life to go out to that. So subject to you guys approving something higher than $2 million, as we've kind of discussed, that's going to kind of give us the green light to move forward with the extension process as a part of the amendment. So statutorily, you have to do an amendment. Statutorily, you have to do an extension. It would be a little odd for us to show an amendment in which you're having costs go beyond its existing maximum life. So we're going to go forward with the assumption that we're doing the extension. Basically, this is kind of the decision point.
Motion from them is probably a good idea to show that the board is behind up.
It's been discussed enough at the feasibility in my mind, you know, where we said 2 million, anything greater is going to extend the district. This would also go for official approval for the board for the standard. The JRB would do the standard and the technical college to get you guys over the 6 years. So at minimum, there will be another board element to this that we could do August 5th. So, but just note that's great. Doing the anticipation note, if you say tonight, yeah, we'll do it at the $7 million number or anything greater than 2, that's gonna like set other things in motion as we kind of discussed. So the action items are the 2024, I'm on slide 3 now, that literally says action items. The 2024 NAN borrowing amount, type of borrowing, method of sale, drop period and term, and distribution list. So we're approving all of this tonight within this. So I'm going to try to do it in summary form through this presentation. So the next slide is the borrowing amount that I'm on. Again, just to kind of reiterate. In truth, the TID could, you know, if you realize economic appreciation, I walked through this with Gabe over the phone today, of about 2.78%, you can pay for the full, you know, $7 million that we're talking about. Again, that's relying on, you know, economic appreciation to happen. You're really not going to get that data point till later. Again, since this is a draw note, I'm saying it's probably not harmful to issue the note, you know, drawable up to $7 million. Just understood that, you know, you may want to restrict yourselves because there's going to be a point in time where we can't draw anymore and your decision is going to be made, right? The other element to think about too is eventually once this gets flipped, it will be general obligation. So you're going to be, you know, putting that on the books at a later point in time, but that amount can be decided, you know, once you've drawn for the projects. So just kind of any questions kind of before I move on from the borrowing amount.
What you just said confuses me a little bit.
Yep.
Well, 2 things. One is we've got conservative projections, it's about 6.8
Yeah.
with an extension. Then we've got a note that's talking about 7.6.
That's because it's your total costs. We kind of, when I was here last week, I think it was, that's the total cost that you had in that memo and what you guys discussed.
Because everything.
Yeah, so that's
If we did
everything.
everything, it would be 7.6.
Yep, and then what I said was I'm gonna come back next week.
Yeah.
And you guys gotta peel that back, you know,
Yeah,
ensure
okay.
it. Yeah,
So, and then the second part that you said is that this would become part of a general obligation debt
mhm,
at some point.
yep.
But I was under the understanding that this is gonna get serviced by the
Correct.
TID.
Yep. So you abate the levy by using tax increment revenue. It's no different than your 2013.
But it shows up as, it just gets categorized as
Yep.
general obligation debt, but we've
Yeah.
got a source of revenue that's coming specifically from TID.
Yeah, there's not a lot of underwriters that'll underwrite TIF revenue bonds.
Got
Yeah, we've only done one in like the last 7 years, and it was a credit union that didn't know what they were doing. So
Sometimes those are good things. Sometimes
so it's just work out. But that said, it's hard to secure those funds. So that's why I say the expectation should be that it's general obligation. The time that we're ready to flip it, we can see if some of these underwriters would be willing to do TIF revenue bonds. It's just not something
Yeah,
that's.
I was more
Yeah.
confused that, like, I figured when I think of general obligation, I think, oh, that's part of the general fund, we're gonna have to service it, but that's not the way. it is.
Yeah.
We still have the revenue will continue to come in because of the extension of the TID.
Yep, yep. So it wouldn't be taxed, but for the increment within the district, right?
Gotcha.
So,
Right.
yep. Oh, sorry.
Is there, so I assume this goes with term also, but is there like an incremental cost to issuance based on the total amount we want to borrow?
Not from us. So what's in there?
Just wondering if it's like tiered, if, you know,
Yeah.
let's say we want to be able to issue only 6 million or 7.
The only unknown there would be from bond counsel, in terms of what they're gonna charge. I don't, believe he's got this in front of him at the $7 million number, so in my mind, it would only go down, but he hasn't said what that dollar amount is yet. Yeah. So, but our number is what it is, you know, our scope of work, I think, which we sent last week, is just kind of flat for this type of transaction regardless of par.
So if we don't need the money, it would be stupid to borrow it, right? Because we will pay to the bond council if nothing else. If, on the other hand, if we might need it, we should borrow it. I mean, what am I?
No, it's gonna be drawable, so you're not borrowing, you're setting what the draw amount would be that you would pull the money from. Think of it like a line of credit, you know, where this is your credit limit. And then your interest cost is gonna be pulled on what you grab.
We don't take anything, we're not going to charge.
Right.
Action.
Yep. The only thing is you do have to pull a minimum draw on a tax exempt obligation of $50,000 and over $50,000. So unless your costs of issuance are that high, which they shouldn't be, that you would just pull that, you're gonna be holding whatever, because ours is 18,000 to help you guys with this transaction. It's flat, no matter what kind of drawable, limited, competitive, you know, this deal is pretty standard from us. We're putting in, I think it's 5,000 for bank fees to close on it, but a lot of them come in 2,000 or under. And then for bond counsel, we just put in 18,000, not really knowing, but putting in what he did for your 2022 sewer revenue bond anticipation note, which is similar transaction. It's just a note anticipation note because you're not going to take out a sewer revenue bond at the end. So, but you're going to draw 50,000% to pay for the cost of issuance, hold the rest, and then your draw as you need, you know, beyond that point. So, but I'm not going to overcharge, so you guys get to the 50,000 mark.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because you want to keep your licenses too.
Yeah, that's true. So I guess any other questions on the amount and or opinions on the amount, because it's kind of the time.
Well, where are we, again, we're throwing out 6.8 and then there's a 7 million number. What was this, the 7 mil, I know there's 7.6 would be everything that we talked about.
You also have this project sheet that I printed for you. This is all the project.
That makes me even more confusing because those don't match up with anything we talked about. Well, they do on project by project basis, but
Yeah.
that's like 9.9 million.
Well, some of the admin stuff you wouldn't be, that's gonna be paid for annually, right? And that's over the time. So like the admin are there admin? Yeah. Those you're not gonna draw on, right? You're gonna pay out of annual tax increment revenue, and that's the total to close. So like, you may have an
That's not
annual 20. No, yeah, so you'd have to scratch all the admin ones and then add that up, and that would be the projects that you could draw for, yeah.
So Gabe, there's all the stuff that's labeled as admin. $25, $120, $45, $15. And is the 100,000 for planning legal admin, is that the same?
Oh, and is the developer incentive on there?
For the culture, right?
Yeah,
Miss Vegas development center.
yeah, you have to subtract that, that's gonna be paid by an MRO. So that's paid out of
So
annual
that's
increment.
3.655 million.
Well, actually, it's on the
Well, it's
first column is your
1.9.
original project plan, yeah, so it's the 1.9 or 1.5, whatever it is. Yeah, you have to delete that too from, you wouldn't draw on that because you're gonna pay that annually through increment. I think thinking about this, right, you guys haven't bid any of these projects.
correct.
So at the end of the day, the dollar amounts listed on that orange sheet are somewhat meaningless, right? Outside of the fact that, right, there's some large ticket items,
Right.
there's some small ticket items. It's kind of the fact of the matter of, are there any limitations you would like to kind of impose on the drawable amount? So we send this out at, an amount that you guys approve, because I don't want to send this out and then, you say, well, we only want to send out 5 million.
These are all guesstimates.
Right. Speak differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Engineering has sent us for what they think it would cost. Which is all we can go off.
So I would land at the 6.8 million because that's what we got the projections based on. I don't,
6.8,
6.8 million.
so you have 500,000. Okay, which, if my math was right, you'd have,
Well, you just need an amount.
Yeah.
Doesn't need the projects.
no, but I'm just saying, if you want to keep it at 6.8, there is 500,000 of projects that would have to.
At least,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just, well, so maybe I should be careful about the way I phrase this. I would like to limit it to 6.8, up to 6.8, because it's a drawable amount. I'm not saying we're gonna draw 6.8, I'm saying we're giving ourselves the flexibility to go up to that amount. We certainly have things that we're like quite certain we're going to do. But there's some things that we can still decide. We don't need to decide tonight. We just need to decide. Like, there are certain things that we're probably not gonna do, but like if we're limited on that because it's 6.8 instead of 7.6 or whatever the number is, I'm just saying, like, I think I'm trying to be cautious with the drawable amount because that's what we've essentially calculated that we can service
Right, so,
from the TID.
so to that point, if we have a drawable amount of up to 7.6 million. And so the point, I guess what I'm asking is, if we choose to have this available up to 7.6 million, what impact does that have on us if we need to borrow in some other, for some other reason? I mean, does that damage our ratios or something that, we wouldn't be able to get a different loan if because we have the ability to continue to draw it, but now we need some emergency fund for something else that it negatively impacts the village?
Honestly, the only thing that I would need to know if you wanted to keep the 7.6, but it would be non-TID 3, is on the term sheet, which is the second thing I handed out. I would just add and other public improvements. That's the TID 3 sentence, right? So it's like, in truth, you could borrow that for 2024 capital, draw on it, and then put that in your long-term financing down the road and just have a small portion be the levy and a very large portion be the TID, right? We just structure the debt, so.
Okay, okay. that's a great question, Mike. So what do we expect? Do we have any idea where the rate's gonna land on this? Is it gonna-
I just had one that was 2.5 million, sold last week at 5.25. Somebody did that, draw as much as you need, just their restriction was one draw a month. Somebody else said, 5.1, but you had to take it out all at once, which obviously adds interest costs. We don't want to do that. So we just said non-conforming bid, you're out. 5.25, I think, is pretty fair. You may have a little more interest here, with the local group that was involved with your sewer revenue bond anticipation note was not involved in that bidding group selected by that municipality. And you have somebody who just serviced, right, a sewer revenue bond anticipation note and everything went swimmingly. So they may be more willing and aggressive, my point there. So these are, in my mind, these are always wild, wild west. Like you kind of never
Yeah,
know.
no, and I guess the basis for my question is to kind of piggyback on Mike's question, I think, which is we're gonna likely have other borrow requirements, but if we can build it into the same loan, if we're gonna get we can't get that rate easily doing other stuff.
So
Well,
that'd be-
Yeah, and your long-term rate's gonna be different than this, right? So,
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna flip it later and then.
If we need to.
Yeah,
But it's but it would be over but hypothetical, not suggesting we do this, all the other caveats, but let's say we're gonna buy a new public works utility truck for $65,000, 80 grand. Like, we could borrow it with this
Yep.
in addition to other stuff that's in the TID. And we might even be able to service it and get it mostly taken care of before this loan
As long as the term.
flips over to go.
yeah, as long as the purpose, I think I would need to change.
Yeah, I understand.
But, yeah,
Yeah, but that's just language.
Right, yep.
That's not.
I think as long as the term sheet's correct.
right, yep.
So there is some traction there to go higher. But I'm also hesitant just because I like the blank check approach to most things.
Right, my only concern is, because I encountered this once. Small business I was in, that the way we had structured our debt resulted in the fact that, it actually negatively impacted us when we wanted to make a change. The banks are like, well, your ratios are wrong. It's kind of like getting a mortgage, and then it's like, okay, well, now we gotta focus on adjusting that, and I don't want that to happen to us.
Well, and I think at that point, if I'm understanding the structure of this correctly, is this will transition to general obligation debt. So at that point, we won't be able to draw on it anymore because it'll literally be a fixed loan with terms that would be for the amount that we borrowed against. So it would be no different than any other general obligation note as it relates to our ratios.
You'd be refinancing it, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
this wouldn't exist. That ratio equates itself, right? So it's like, you're gonna have this outstanding. Technically, it's an anticipatory note, so it doesn't count against your statutory budget. So you could, in theory, go out and borrow $7 million of general obligation debt for other stuff while you have this. But that's like acting like we forgot this existed, which I'm not gonna let happen. I know those two won't let happen. So, it's like that, right? You can get yourself in a situation, but it would be the understanding that you're not going out and borrowing for the same project with two issues or something like that. So.
Question, now, if, say, for example, we borrowed 7.1 million, whatever. And and we got it for 5.25% or whatever. If the interest rates go down, could we redo it?
Yeah, this is gonna be callable the day you close.
I'm sorry, say that
This is
again.
callable the day you close, so you can prepay it at any time. So if you guys decide to do nothing, you could literally just pay back the $50,000.01 plus accrued interest to that day. If you decide we're not doing any TID projects for whatever reason, you guys could do that. That particular underwriter would probably be like, all right, not gonna bid on this next time, but that said, this is gonna be callable, drawable. So you could flip this at any time, but the goal would be, right, that you take what you need and then secure the long-term financing to pay everything so as to not partially call it, but call it in whole. So.
Any other questions or comments, thoughts?
My 2 cents, I don't think it makes sense to limit it right at this.
That would be my take. Based on Mike's
What are you
question,
saying?
it doesn't make sense to limit it at this point.
Might as well swing for the fence, because you're not actually taking the money out unless you do the projects. You can always decide on that later.
Right.
This is just making sure that you've got what you need if you wanted to do it.
Correct. So do we need a motion or anything?
But
Or,
at the end, we'll,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just kind of jotting down the notes. So we're gonna keep the amount as listed.
yeah, 7.61.
In my understanding that we want to add and other public improvements.
Yes, please, in the language.
The one thing there, just I'll say it out in the open, but that's could require some extra tracking, right? You know, in terms of, we drew this, it's a TID 3 project. And just so you know, if this is gonna cross an auditing timeline threshold, so you're gonna have outstanding proceeds, right? And
Sure.
for those funds and debt assigned to them, so just make sure that that's
If we were to draw on it.
for like the truck or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item is the type. So on the type of borrowing slide, as we've discussed, we kind of wanted that drawable feature so that you can choose which projects to accomplish as your bid prices come in. So understand you're going to have a series of events that'll lead you to say what projects you're doing, right? If one project comes in really high and you kind of decide to throw that one to the side, right? You can bid out the other projects as slated in your project plan. For the term, you can provide a time to bid projects and not pay interest or principal until you convert it to a long-term financing. So if you go to the term sheet that I handed out, bottom of the first page, right now we have this going to the bidders on the 17th. So that's in 2 days. They're going to get a comment period of like a week to ask questions so that there's kind of a fairness, and then we send out the answers to any questions that were asked to all bidders. Then after that, they're going to come in with their bids August 5th by 10 o'clock a.m. And at the August 5th meeting, you'll award it, to the lowest, bidder there that adheres to your terms, so that it's drawable, things like that. So like I used anecdotally, what happened last week is they sent it to 2 banks. The 2 banks responded, one was drawable, one was not. And they were like, you're lower interest rate, but you're not drawable. That's not what we want. So we throw you out. So just understand you're going to award it to the lowest cost of financing, but that conforms to your bid or to your terms. So that maturity that we have right now is February 1st, 2026. So we just kind of selected 1.5 years based off of the discussions we've had. I think going much longer than that, $7 million drawable, right? The more and more exposure the banks will see there. Unless you get really cute with it and start saying, all right, it's one draw only up to $100,000 or $500,000. It's probably going to be bigger given the dollar amounts here. But if you start to get more acute with it, you probably could go longer. One thing I'll offer there is we put the 5th as our sale date only to give us time if nobody were to bid on this. So if we do have something like we're receiving that feedback from banks that either the 1.5 years is too long, or you guys change that 1.5 years tonight and say, can we have it go out 2 years? And we send this out on Wednesday, 2 year, and we get no bids, rather you shorten this, then we can come back and go out for another sale, right? You just skip over that agenda item and we resend it out. So That's a lot of information to say. Our suggestion is a year and a half, and having this mature in February 1st, 2026. In my mind, that says you need to figure out all of your projects that you're gonna do by like September of 2025, right? Make all your draws, probably have a couple of draws, September, October, November, right? But then we'd be looking at securing the long-term financing in winter of next year. There are generally good interest rates for the municipal securities market in February. So that was another thing that I think we talked about during the FMP in timing the market, as you generally have pretty low demand. So if we could get all of our projects organized by then, we could do that. The other thing that you could do is advance draw, right? If you're like, we know this project's going to be 3 million, we don't have all of our invoices coming out. You could advance draw, have monies available, things like that. So I don't think it's a huge issue, but just thoughts opening it for February 1st of 2026. Welcome your commentary as well.
That sounds reasonable to me. I don't. It's just my take.
And you'd close on it August 21st. So from August 21st of this year to February, you'd have your draws. Typically, you're going to see somebody come back with, the one draw a month thing. So if anything, you can draw a little bit more if you know that you got invoices coming in.
Can you describe one draw? You're saying we have to draw on it every month?
No, they just say they limit
Oh,
you
they
to one.
limit to one.
So you can't say $1 million on Monday, $2 million on Wednesday. Yeah, the bank's probably not gonna,
And am I right? Pay interest from the minute that you draw the money?
Once you draw, right, you're paying on what you've drawn.
Once you draw. Okay.
So we got that. The other bullets on this type of borrowing is it's an anticipation note, so it doesn't count against your statutory borrowing capacity. And then the type of borrowing here, we've kind of recommended and talked about over time here, this kind of request for proposals to lenders so that you can dictate the terms. So anybody have any items in terms of issues of the anticipation note or anything that we've kind of talked about, drawability? We can also, talk about if you want to not have that limit on the draws at all. Right now, we usually on the second page of the term sheet, you'll see on the left-hand side about a third of the way down, it's this draw feature. It says the village will be permitted unlimited draws or a limited number of draws based on the bidder's proposal. Understand the language is like that because we would have people come back just saying one draw, we said unlimited draws, and then they would say one draw a month. And then you'd have somebody say, that kind of interest rates would be at play. And it's kind of, we want to let the bidders kind of dictate that and not have to throw out bids because they just have certain draw standards. Yeah. How they want to proceed with the proposal. Okay. So then beyond that, method of sale, on the next slide, we discuss more detail. I have to say in prior presentations, I don't know why it says memo there, but in prior presentations, really you can look at anticipatory notes as the key here, so it doesn't count against your geo capacity. Other communities, when they immediately think of a draw loan, they go straight to the state trust fund loan program. One thing I'll say there is they don't issue on an anticipatory note. They issue on a general obligation basis or a revenue basis. So here, with no real revenues, able to fund $5 million, $7 million out of the gate, it would be geo, which would be a negative impact against your capacity. You have capitalized interest because you don't want to make interim payments. So you'd have to capitalize that interest. And they also have limited call periods. The other important point that I put out there is It is at 6% right now, so that is going to be our threshold in terms of qualifying, the bids that come in. We want something under 6% because in truth, we could sacrifice geodebt capacity and say, we'll take this at 6% state trust fund loan and go on our merry way. So just note that's, we've kind of talked about this in the F&P process when we first discussed how to get through the expenditure period, but just kind of wanted to reiterate that. So we've been going through several meetings, doing this, what I call limited competitive, based off of the village's structure. So you guys are going to choose a list of banks. That's on the next slide, but we'll get there, with a unique structure, interest due at maturity, and ability to draw on, that private placement as well. So there's a point in the term sheet that you'll see security. Oh, here, resale note on the second page at the bottom. Basically that they're issuing this to hold it themselves and not resale. The issue with that would be you would be subject to continuing disclosure. If they were able to resell it, you'd have to pay us, because right now that you use us for continuing disclosure, we would have to make another annual filing for this thing, and we're trying to limit that. So it's a private, what's called a private placement. Right. Yep.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just for you to write us a check for this loan, you're charging $38,210.
Nope, that's our costs. That's bond counsel, estimated bond counsel, and estimated bank closing fees. So the bank's going to have their own legal team review what your bond counsel puts forth and say, whether or not they agree on everything and things like that. So that's not just us. Ours is 18,000 and
What percentage is that they charge?
what's that?
What's the percentage rate that they charge? I mean, how did they arrive at $38,210?
It's a flat fee. I think.
Flat fee,
There's three
yeah.
different parties there.
So Ellers charges 18,000.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Ellers charges 18,000 for their service. He approximated 5,000 for bank closing fees and another 18,000 for bond counsel.
Again, I can't dictate what they're going to charge. It's just our estimates. The bond counsel came from a similar transaction that they did for you in 2022. So,
gotcha.
yep. And then the bank fees, we usually allow that amount of money to get there. So. Again, we drafted these terms, based off of our conversations, and then your bond counsel is reviewing the terms tomorrow based off of the decisions here tonight, and then we'll finalize them, put them in a little RFP package with the cover letter that your staff will sign and put on Belleville letterhead, and then they'll send to your distribution list. The final page of that will have a proposal form in which the bank signs, which is actually the last page of your term sheet that I handed out. And then next is we got to look at the list of underwriters. So before we move on, though, any other questions on kind of the method of selling? So the next page is the distribution list. And when we talked about this leading up to tonight, we were directed to include everybody who bid on the sewer revenue bond anticipation note, as the first bullet point indicates. So those bidders were Bank of New Glarus, People's Community Bank, and Wintrust. So since they already have that familiarity with the village, kind of the anticipatory note function, you guys agreed that makes sense to send it out to them. And then what we also talked about is you asked for a list of bidders that have bid on like transactions that Ellers has worked with. So we've produced that. So that list is in blue on the right. Just kind of highlighted it only to make sure you guys kind of understand that list was ours. The one above it is the list that you guys had. in my role cannot suggest this bank, not that bank, right? We're just providing, here are the banks that have bid on like transactions. And the like transactions is defined in these bullet points here where, within 2 years, par amounts 5 million or greater. It's a drawable anticipation note and it's a private placement. So Huntington, Bank of Alma, Bankers Bank, CCF Bank, and Northwestern they met that criteria. When we refine our search in our database, it just spits out that information. So,
You wanted me to bring up Lake Ridge.
oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
And
gonna say-
any others that you want to add, we have to add tonight, and that's going to be
Yeah,
part of
Lake
it.
Lake Ridge Bank.
Lake Ridge.
Yeah.
So any others that we want to add or remove?
Complete list.
Yeah.
Yep.
It says,
Lake Ridge.
send anybody that wants to bid, but I think we want to keep both local banks.
Got it. So I have the 3 that bid on the R-band, the, what is that, 5 in blue there, and then Lake Ridge. That'll be our distribution list. So then the timing, I've kind of already gone through this, but again, we're sending this out on Wednesday. We're gonna have an inquiry period for a week. We're then gonna respond to any bids or any inquiries. And then they need to, the banks would bid on this on August 5th, by August 5th. And then we'll award that night. And then we'll look to, close on August 21, not 31. I apologize for that. Thing up the slideshow not matching the term sheet there. The other little note there at the bottom is when we talked about this last time, we decided to bid kind of soon so that if nobody bids, right, we have additional time to navigate it. If somebody's like, we'll only do up at 5 or all those other things we discussed here tonight, we can do this before September 21st.
How does that timeline align with getting approval from the other taxing authorities to move forward with the TID?
This is technically a separate transaction.
Understand it's a separate transaction.
They have no governance over.
Understand
Yeah.
that, but the question I'm asked, it's like, when will we know that they're okay with us doing whatever projects we're thinking about?
On August 5th.
August 5th, okay, so-
ARB,
That's
Okay.
right, yeah.
yeah,
That's what I was asking,
Yep.
is that, so August 5th, I guess my concern is we're not signing a note until we've got
Yep.
the
So-
green light from them to say, yeah, this is fine. If you were gonna.
Absolutely not. Then it's kind of like, okay, forget it.
Exactly, but that's the reason I'm asking, right, is I didn't want us to be like, oh, yeah, we've signed this note, it's fantastic, and then
right,
you can't do any of these things.
right.
Not that we're gonna draw on it at that point, but
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I agree, and I'm.
Yep. So yeah, joint review board is happening first, and then I think it's plan commission, then it'll be your
Yeah,
board approval after those 2 meetings that same night, so. That's all I have. So we'll be moving forward with this. We'll make the updates tomorrow. We get the final items into village staff's hands, and then they send that out to the distribution list. So just usually send them the list of contacts, email addresses, they blind copy everybody. So in terms of who wants to sign, the cover letter and whatever, that's up to you guys there, but that's kind of going to be the run of course. And I would try to get this out by end of day Wednesday. So.
any other questions for Brian, though? You don't need, we need to vote at all?
Honestly, I would say like motion to move forward as presented.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the guidelines presented to Brian. Second it. You know what item of business we're on here.
7A.
Yeah, thank you. That's seconded by Tony. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Sir. Okay,
Go north and then east, I think.
I saw that.
thanks, Brian. Okay, next, discuss and consider village hall security upgrades.
So we had talked, it's been a little while ago, about some of the security concerns of Village Hall. And the board asked to get numbers on what it would mean to put fobs on Village Hall, and this is that proposal. So we use the same, it's Omni. It's the same provider that is the library and police department. It does not make sense to have two different systems. You have one system that does the entire village, especially with this, so the chief can have access to everything. A lot easier. It's not cheap. The access control. So if we wanted to do front door, this vestibule door, and the back door, it's 15,300.
It's what?
15,300. Because our doors are not set up for what they need. It's a lot of wiring, tests, put in a lot of equipment.
How many people would we suspect would have access?
So it would automatically unlock and lock when we want, but it would be board members and staff.
Not all staff though, like we wouldn't have, like all the police officers wouldn't necessarily have access.
They'd have it in their cars, however, should have it in their cars, their trucks. Let's say department heads. Yeah, anybody who works in Village Hall.
Yeah, fine,
So,
I'm just talking,
but the keys, they didn't charge us for the fobs or anything because they,
no, I understand. It's, I think the price tag's just, like,
It's
again, it's not that it's super high, but it's, I don't disagree that we need to do something from a security standpoint. I think the bigger underlying question, which is not this conversation, but it is like, at some point, like, are we gonna stay here? And if we are, that's, if we're putting, if we're putting a couple $100,000 into this building or more than that to get it up to speed, I'd like, then I wouldn't scoffing at 13 grand, but if we're not, I'm more inclined to contact a locksmith and relock.
Well, I
Redo
think
the
this
lock.
building is more secure than, I mean, it's not as, because the keys are a special key, they're limited. I don't think guessing there's not many keys out for this building. So, don't know, I know, but,
I think
um,
it's the unknown is what's.
I
yeah,
understand.
I mean, it might be, as much as a fob would be nice, I agree, this is pretty high price. Whether we stay here or not, I think we're a long ways from making that decision, so I don't think that can necessarily weigh into every decision we make here, but, we might be better off to get a locksmith to come down and put new locks in and with the, keys,
Rekey it. Yeah.
rekey it, so. I don't know.
Why would, is there an option to not do both doors right here in the front? I
Well,
mean,
you probably ideally you would want that space to be open because you have that, if we have the ability to do it, you would do both doors because of that, the Narcan box that's in there. You would want people to be able to have access to that spot. We obviously don't have to have that Narcan there, but it would be nice to be able to have that door locked and keep that other door open if there was ever a security issue and we could go up to the window. To allow us for more flexibility in operations, but again, if we redo Village Hall, that vestibule window may not even be there.
That's not even keeping the vestibule. The problem with that is, I'm not gonna say it because it's an open meeting, but there's another security issue there.
yeah, there's some.
With the window, yeah. Because ideally, that Narcan box is in a vestibule that's open all the time. I mean, this Narcan box only does good to the John Q. public the hours that this building is actually open. That's not what they're intended for necessarily. They're supposed to be there for, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, if we didn't have that window, I'd say just do the inside door and, I mean, it'd be nice to leave that outside door unlocked, you know, so that somebody could get in there and use that.
And we can always shut that window down.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be terribly hard. So we created for COVID, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not always been there.
Right.
As easy as they put it up.
Yeah, we got rid of the mural that was there to put that window in. So, yeah.
So, you know, I think you guys do need to make some type of decision on what we want to do and for the two buildings. But we are putting that in the capital budget for having the studies done for being able to tell us what we need and what it would cost. So you are taking the right step. So I guess, do you want to do this? Do you want to just do a locksmith? Gary?
I thought there had been money set aside in the past for this upgrading this building.
There had been from last year's budget that we had carried over. So it's not like we don't have the, we couldn't, it'd be a capital expenditure, so we would put it on top of whatever borrow we were planning to do. And the board had money for Village Hall upgrade. So I don't think having the money is the problem. I think it's the amount, it isn't worth it.
A lot of that money was, if I recall, was some focused on ADA.
ADA compliance in the bathroom and
Bathrooms, there's
Entry level,
walls,
Fixing
front,
the light in the back.
you know, fine in the bathroom. This building does not structurally work a lot.
But it hasn't been spent, should still be there.
Well, there was no money there to begin with. There was the appropriation, but no money was ever borrowed.
Oh, okay.
So is this system, if we put this in and X number of years down the road, would it be, I think I know the answer to this, would we take it out of this building and put it in the new building? So,
Mike, I'm going off Mike's gut here and I think no.
It would be more of a hassle to
and it's,
pay someone to take it out of here, hopefully not destroy it.
well, and technology changes, not that much, but
exactly.
technology
Yeah.
changes over time too,
The
so.
reason I didn't, like I said, I didn't get another bid on it. Normally we probably would, but since this provider does the other two, it doesn't make sense to mix and match with this.
yeah, no, I agree 100%.
So it's,
I'm just more inclined to roll it into when we do upgrades to either this, when we actually decide on if we're upgrading this space or a short term or whatever term. So the bathroom's done at the same time and, you know, have more of it done at once.
I got a quote when I started here and the guy didn't come down and take a look at it. I described to him, I mean, there's a difference depending on how many keys we want, but just to relock the three doors, he said it would be a few $100.
I'd say if you could give me $1, I would like to just change the locks. So if
Yeah, I
you,
mean, let me ask this question, like I know there's obviously an interest in doing this, but is there an urgency other than, like, we just don't know who's got keys right now? Or is there some exposure that we're not aware of?
I think that is the exposure. Because there's just a lot of keys and we don't know who has them.
Understand, so if relocking is a few $100s, I would say I'm fine with
Yeah.
that.
I mean, if the rekeying is gonna cost you some money, but thankfully there's only 3 doors, but these keys are not cheap that we use, we stick with the same setup. These keys are not cheap either, but again, it's not gonna be thousands of dollars, so.
Okay, so when I did it, it was August 11th, 23. I spoke with Lock Doc out of Madison, quoted me $105 to rekey the 3 doors at Village Hall. It was a $60 call fee, $45 rekey, 15 each times 3, and $2 for each key requested.
And who was that with?
This is all?
Lock Doc.
And I probably actually had one more door because I actually have an outdoor on my office.
Did you?
And I probably would just rekey that as well. That way all of our entrances are the same. So add a 4th door.
I think we probably should get some more prices. I mean, have our key and lock.
Well, I think we can. I think simple, what I would ask if you feel comfortable with it, is the dollar amount is like $300. Just
So to that point, Ian, what was rough total for 4 doors to be rekeyed?
4 doors would have been $120 plus $2 for each key we requested to be made.
$120 per door?
$120 total.
So it's $15. This is a year old and it's $15 per door.
Say there's 25 keys, so that'd be $50 on a key basis, so you're talking
$170,
so.
according to this one quote.
Understand, yeah. So if we gave,
Yeah, so for $500, we could
you
probably.
could absolutely do everything,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I'd say rekey the 4 doors not to exceed. I was gonna say 1,000, but 500.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll second that at 500.
So I'll make that a motion.
I thought you just did.
Yes, I didn't say officially with a motion. We gotta get moving.
Okay.
So I will second the motion if you making a motion, so we'll say Mike made a motion to rekey the four exterior doors or the four doors referenced for up to $500. And I'll second that. Any further discussion?
Because I'm guessing food pantry has keys to the building and everything, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so 25 keys might not get it, so.
No,
And the funds are gonna come from,
they would come from probably the capital line. We haven't borrowed yet, so it would be whatever on the borrowing that we would have to do at the end of this year. Right?
Yeah. Unless you want to take it out of operating somewhere.
You could take it out of, if it's $500, you could take it out of the reserve, that 60,000 if you want.
Somebody forgot.
Yeah, can you put it on Tierney's desk and we can
That was.
I think that was Sue.
Yeah.
Yes, Sue here.
put it on Tierney's desk and we can.
We need guidance as to where to take it from too, or
We can do that
that's the.
because it might require a budget amendment. maybe.
Understood. Cool. So motion by Mike, seconded by me, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries. Next item, discuss and consider urban forestry special charge policy.
Can we actually do item D first because C, E, and F are all linked?
Okay, so item D is discuss and consider urban forestry grant application and resolution 2024-16.
Yep. So the resolution is just to allow me to apply for the 2024-25 urban forestry grant that just opened the other day through the DNR. That's all it is. I put together just a basic budget based on what we already project to spend and do spend on an annual basis.
I'll make a motion to approve the urban forestry grant or the ability, the resolution to pursue an urban forestry grant.
Second.
Me, seconded by Maxine, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That carries. So D, and then what do you want to do?
So C, E, and F are all linked.
Okay.
Item C is the urban forestry special charge policy. E is the resolution creating the special revenue fund, keep the money segregated per statute. And F is to use the budget that Jim and I had put together for all the documentation and everything for the urban forestry charge to bring it to you guys in the first place and have that budget amendment split out the urban forestry expenditures from the parks budget and put it in the urban forestry special revenue fund that would be created.
So C and F we've looked at, were part of the last agenda.
All of them.
Yes, okay.
All of them were. There's nothing new here. This is all just administrative stuff. to put in.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we adopt finance policy 14.
What is that?
That's C.
That's it. See.
Yep.
C.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, motion by Gary, seconded by Mike. Yes. Was it finance policy 14?
Yep.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
You're a no.
Yeah, I'm a no too.
3-2.
Yeah, and so E is the resolution creating the Urban Forestry Special Revenue Fund. Like I said, by statute, the funds collected through any urban forestry charge that the board does or does not impose at the end of the year would have to be segregated from all other money in its own fund. This creates that fund. So like I said, this is just purely administrative.
I move we pass or approve resolution number 2024-17. Second.
Just finding the right page here. So motion by Gary, seconded by Mike.
Am I correct? If you got a grant, that money would go into that fund then, right?
Correct, and we reduce the total amount of the, would increase the total amount of revenues against expenditures.
Okay, so motion by Gary, seconded by Mike to pass the resolution 2024-17 to create urban forestry special. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 5-0, if I understand correctly. Next is item F, discuss and consider budget amendment resolution 2024-18.
So when I first brought this to you, before I brought it to you, I sat down with Jim and we pulled out from our current parks and forestry budget, how much money we actually spend on forestry. So Jim broke down the man hours for chipping and all that stuff, equipment, everything that we spend on Cody the forester, tree plantings. We extracted that for the packet that I gave you guys before for the examples. And so what I'm doing here is just taking that exact same budget that Jim and I went over and putting those funds from the Parks and Forestry, the current budget, into the special revenue fund that you guys just set up, so that at the end of the year, because this charge is in arrears, at the end of the year, we'll have an accurate depiction of what was actually spent on urban forestry, so that if the board does decide to impose a fee, we'll have the exact expenditure amounts to be able to do so.
So what does this all include again? Here?
So
Tree planting, the forester, the same stuff we discussed at the last meeting.
yeah, so here I can pull it up because it's not.
Leaf collection.
It's
Collection, wood chipping,
yep. Just give me 1 second. I can pull it up.
planting.
Stormwater remediation.
Okay. Okay. So salaries, right now in the parks budget, there's $65,091.17. Jim and I worked out leaf collecting, planting, chipping, all that stuff would be an actual of $23,994.88. For salaries, benefits, there's currently $33,000 and change in parks. Take out $8,398.21 to correspond with the salary figure. Operating supplies, right now there's currently $27,500 in parks. We figured that $3,500 of that is dedicated to trees and purchase of trees and all that good stuff. So taking that $3,500 out, $27,000 for urban forestry. That's our contract with the forester, the current contract with the forester, and the contracted work we do with the tree service. So that whole $27,000 go over. Fuel, out of the $3,500 budget for parks, it would be $1,500, and that's mostly small equipment fuel and chipper and truck. And then same thing, machine and equipment maintenance. There's $6,000 in the parks budget, and Jim figured about $2,500 of that would be attributable to urban forestry. So the total there is, let me see one sec here, out of the $162,247 in parks and forestry, $66,893 of that is attributable to urban forestry, at least budgeted amounts. And so that's what we're going to pull out of the current general fund budget and put in the special revenue fund. And that has nothing to do with any charge that may or may not be imposed. That's just keeping track of what we actually spend on urban forestry so that you guys can later decide what you want to do.
Move we approve resolution 2024-18.
Second.
Carrie, motion by Carrie, seconded by Mike. Further discussion?
So if you're taking it out, and putting it in a separate fund.
Yep.
How does that affect the overall budget of recreation and parks or?
It doesn't, because we attributed all these expenditures specifically to urban forestry. So it's money that we spend on that service, those services anyway. So it shouldn't affect any of the park services or anything like that. And if not funded with some kind of charge or grant money or whatever, it would still be tax levy that's transferred into the special revenue fund to cover all the expenses. So it's literally just taking that money and tracking it separately.
So it wouldn't make any difference if it was in regular parks and recreation versus,
For day-to-day operation, none at all.
It's just setting up a structure. So if we were to levy a fee, in order to do that, we need to justify there's expenditures that fee represents.
well, I realize what you're saying, but it's already accounted for in
But it's not-
parks and
But
recreation.
it's not separated out specifically for
It's not
this.
separated out,
But that's the important part of this step.
except that you want to create a fee to pay for that.
Not necessarily, this isn't creating the fee though.
No, it's not creating it, but eventually that's what you want to do is create a fee to pay for this. Am I correct?
Not entirely necessarily. I want the flexibility that if we need more revenue, that we've got another potential revenue source in that fee. That's likely, for my opinion, it's not even going to be the full amount. It would just be a limited amount. So if we get to the end of the budget time and say we're short like 20 grand, but we don't know what else to cut, we'll figure out what fee we could charge that would get us 20 grand. But yes, it would be an additional fee relative to that, but it doesn't need to be the whole thing. It's literally just giving this body flexibility to say, hey, there's another way that we can generate revenue. I understand the sensitivity. I have no interest in like increasing fees for residents, including myself. But I also understand that like, I know what the budget's going to look like a little bit, and it's going to be difficult we don't have any room to cut stuff. So we're going to be between a rock and a hard place.
I don't know. And to be completely honest, but none of that means anything to me right now. I'm just trying to set up the structures. There's a possibility in the future.
I mean, this is more or less formalizing the action that we took.
Correct.
4-3 vote last meeting or 2 meetings ago, whenever it was.
Yeah.
That's why you don't see anything on here for the fire fee because that failed. So,
Otherwise, it would be the whole thing for the.
yes.
Any further discussion?
So this is actually putting it into an actual amendment saying that we are going to have this, right?
This is creating the structure so that if we wanted to decide to levy a fee or charge a fee, that we would have the ability to, we've got the structure to track it so that it can be documented. So if the state comes in or anybody else comes in, Ian's got the capabilities to say, no, like we've got the fees, we track it right here to say, this is what we charge and what we pay for urban forestry. And we're collecting less than that or the same amount as that. I don't know that we'd ever get to that level, but we're collecting less than that amount, but we can justify this fee because we've got these expenditures for those services.
Purely a separate tracking mechanism. You guys decided at the end of budget time that you don't want to charge a fee. Great, then I just put a transfer from general fund line item in there and the tax money that would go to the parks and forestry, what we have now budget, would just get transferred there for forestry. That's it. But at least we'd have that tracking mechanism. Things would be kept separate. And it's kind of cleaner for other things too, like we go for the urban forestry grant for DNR and everything. They require that we track things as well, and this would kind of help with that too. But
Any other questions? Yeah, so motion by Gary, seconded by Mike to adopt the amendment, budget amendment resolution 2024-18 for urban forestry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
They oppose.
You opposed? So 3-2. Does that create any issues yet?
no. Simple majority is all I need.
Oh, I was noticing that that's not the way it's listed on the resolution.
Where?
The heading of the resolution actually references a 2/3 majority. Right at the heading, it's in bold, the attachment.
The 2/3 majority.
I gotta look that. That was just simple majority. Don't let me stop you. I can keep looking. Keep looking.
You want to come back to that, or is it?
Aaron, are you still on?
Yeah,
Do you know if this type of budget amendment requires 2/3 majority?
no, sorry, Gabe, I'd have to look it up.
Most budget amendments do require 2/3, but usually roll call.
It's, Rick says 2/3 for budget amendments.
So with 5, it would require 4 people.
Well, no, it's actually listed as 2/3 of the full. board.
Entire board, yeah. So
Yeah.
it'd have to be 5 of this.
It's, yeah, right. So
So if this fails to pass, then we want to reconsider? 'Cause what's the impact?
Just administrative, a bit more of a pain in the ass.
So I guess it doesn't stop the thing from happening. It just makes it harder on staff to do. what we have to do.
What did you say, Gabe?
It doesn't stop anything from happening. It just makes it harder for us to be able to do what we have to do with it.
And you guys are voting no, and that's cool, but none of the things we're voting on tonight change whether or not there's a fee. That's already been voted on and decided. It's just. Yeah.
So so you said reconsider, is there a motion to reconsider that can be made?
I'm familiar with the process to reconsider, but
Can you do
So
that?
I'm
in the
asking
same
that
meeting?
out loud because I think Gabe was.
I think it's, I'm not gonna be the one who's monitoring it, but I know that.
No, I'm asking you from a Robert's rules standpoint, a motion to reconsider after a vote's been taken.
You do that the same?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm gonna find out.
Consider.
I think you can do it right at the back end of the.
Request to a decision maker to examine a ruling or decision that can be used in a variety, blah, blah, blah.
Right, so. Want to follow formal, the motion to reconsider may be made only by a member who voted on the prevailing side in the original vote, such as someone who voted yes if the motion passed or voted no if the motion was defeated.
I'm sorry, so it's only if yes, if it passed or
If
no.
one of the people who voted no,
Okay, so Tony or Maxine, if you would like to make life easier for Gabe and Ian, since this is already passed, great to make a motion to reconsider.
I'll make a motion to reconsider.
Thank you. I'll second that.
And what does that mean by reconsidering?
Means we're gonna vote again
Well, then what's the purpose?
because somebody might change their vote.
and is it a full board?
Okay, whatever.
Is it a,
Is it full 2/3 or is it 2/3 present?
No, it has to be full 2/3.
So we're apparently SLO.
with a-
You're fine.
2/3 vote of the entire membership of the governing body is required to amend the budget.
So we need 5. Oh, we've got a motion to reconsider on the floor anyway, so we'll go through the motions doing that. I'm gonna do a roll call this time. Okay, so we've got a motion to reconsider. So the motion, and I'm assuming it'd be the original motions. The motion to reconsider was made by Tony. And I'm assuming I can second that.
I think
That it wouldn't require somebody else who voted against it. So that is to, again, discuss and consider to approve the amendment resolution to the budget for 2024-18 for urban forestry. And I'll say in discussion, because we're to that point, this is literally just to create a structure so that Ian and Gabe can track this. It's already been approved. This is doing nothing more than amending the budget to allow for them to track things more easily. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll do roll call vote. Tony,
Yes.
Maxine,
No,
Gary,
Yes.
Mike,
yes.
I'm a yes, so that is a 4-1. Still fails. Hope you're coming with budget ideas. Okay. New business, discuss and consider refuse and recycling special charge policy.
I thought we were gonna skip that.
This is different than the other one or not? This isn't, this is charge policy, or is this has anything to do with charges relative to
Forestry now.
No, this is, we already have a refuse and recycling special charge. We've had it for years.
right,
This is, we've never had a policy on how we
right. So
implement.
this, you're asking relative to taking on the bin size stuff, right? This is different than that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I just want to make sure, because this,
How we,
this is how we bill or how we assess the fees or the
Yeah.
policies.
Just putting it-
So, no, you're totally fine. I wanted to make sure because I just read through it and I'm like, this is different than what I think you're talking about. So you're fine.
the only thing we have in writing anywhere about the special charge is just a small blurb that adopts the state statute saying that we can charge a special charge, but there's nothing, we don't have anything, haven't had anything on exactly how we charge refuse and recycling. So I just put it in writing, how we actually do it.
I'll move we approve finance policy 15.
Second.
Motion made by Gary, seconded by Mike. Further discussion?
So what exactly is this now? I lost you guys. Consider refuse and recycling special charge policy? What does that mean?
Yep. So we have the refuse and recycling special revenue fund that we've been passing through all of our expenditures and revenues for garbage and refuse collection, spring cleanups, all that stuff. That's all gone through refuse and recycling. We've been charging for it every single year. We can by statute. That's not a problem. It's just internally, we haven't had any written process or policy or anything relative to how we do that. And so I just put it in writing, how we do it.
Oh. So I mean, it really isn't gonna change. On our tax bill, it says this is how much your garbage.
Yeah, this just explains how it's calculated,
How we're doing it.
it's charged.
Yeah.
why.
Okay, so it's just saying how and why we're doing this. Okay, gotcha.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 5-0. Next, discuss and consider, that's. what I'm
Skitter, that's a good.
That's a skitter. I like it.
Where's Merriam-Webster when you need it? We created a new word tonight.
Make our own dictionary. I'm okay with that. This,
I feel like that's a Canadian thing that, I don't know.
skitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a skitter, eh? Skitter. Okay,
Oh, sorry,
discuss
sorry.
and consider fee in lieu of tree planting ordinance amendment.
Okay, so here's another fun one. So this story ties into the parks impact fee later on in the agenda, but so I was looking at all of the building inspection permit fees and all that stuff, and we were charging a parks impact fee from 2007. And we were also charging a fee in lieu of tree planting fee in the amount of $350 for every new residential block.
Yep.
We have absolutely nothing in writing anywhere saying that we can charge a fee in lieu of tree planting. So we had to stop charging it. And then I came up with this ordinance amendment so that we could reenact it. That makes sense.
Yeah,
So it's for, I discussed it with Jim, $350 seems to be the magic amount. That's a correct amount. I even discussed it with Petrie, and I asked him if he had any kind of agreement or anything on the books, because by his development agreements, it says that he's supposed to plant trees and warrant them for a year. Well, he hasn't been doing that, but he's been paying this $350 tree fee. So somewhere, somehow, someone came up with a fee that is pretty damn close to what it would cost to plant and take care of a tree for a year. He's been paying it instead of planting trees. But there's not been anything written down anywhere that I can find saying that that's kosher.
Yeah, the history of it is that this came up years ago, and it was instead of, even though we had a list, we had a little more control over what trees got planted, even though we had a list of allowable trees, the forester, I think Cody probably brought this forward if I remember correctly. So it allows us to decide what we're gonna plant in all those in the terrace and everything. So
Yeah.
it pays $350. That comes to the village. That's how we buy the trees and pay for planting them and watering them and all that kind of stuff.
350 is the exact same amount that Jim came up with. I just, now, if we enact this ordinance amendment, we can continue to charge that fee. It would go, well, it would go into the urban forestry special revenue fund that was just created. That might be the only thing that goes in there. I digress. But that'll go in there, keep it separate. We use it for tree plantings and whatever else, and off we go. So it just took a little time to get everything squared away.
And I'll move that we adopt ordinance number 2024 it's 19 then, or doesn't have a number on it?
I don't know. That would be a merit question.
I think we're on 9 or 10. Sorry, I can put a number on it. Just adopt the ordinance, Gary.
Okay, I'll move that we adopt the ordinance.
Second it. Second it.
Chapter 600 of the village.
Yeah.
Code of ordinance.
So I know there's no reference to the amount. Is that by design? That's gonna come up later?
Yes, the amount's going to be in the fee schedule that gets updated hopefully annually from here on out.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So a motion made by Gary, seconded by Maxine to adopt the fee in lieu of tree planting ordinance amendment. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-0. Next, discuss and consider 2025 fee schedule.
Okay, so this is a culmination of kind of months worth of work. So there are a few different attachments here. One of them is a clean schedule, fee schedule. So if you choose to adopt everything as I presented tonight, that's what we can post. I put on there September 1st as a date because there's no time like a present to start taking any more revenue. There's also a little bit of a timing issue here. As I said, there are some agreements coming in later on this fall in which the other party wishes to freeze all fees at the time of the signing of the agreement. Well, this would make that just peachy keen on our end. So everything would be updated. There's a comparison. So I took our numbers, I compared them with New Glarus, Verona, Horeb, Evansville, Oregon, Fitchburg, and Monroe. And I put all the corresponding data into the spreadsheet that you see. Not everyone had the same fees. Not everyone charges the same fees the same way, but everything that was similar enough, I included so you could see where everyone sat. In the second part of the spreadsheet, I had our current fees with my recommended, then the dollar change and the percentage change. It's important to note that these are all user fees. There is not a single fee in here that would be for your average taxpayer who isn't receiving some sort of service or approval or something that's not above and beyond what they pay their taxes for. So I don't know if you got any other questions. If you want me to go over anything, happy to do so.
I have one suggested edit.
Mhm.
Page 5 of the fee schedule.
Yeah.
3, well, I guess 4 from the bottom. Work started without permits. There should be no dollar sign in front of the 2. I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right,
Good call.
2 times fees.
Good call.
You might want to spell that out. Just say 2 times fees.
So the only change, or not only change, but the change that opt out because I several requests in the year for these. So the temporary class B is going to be a $10 daily fee. Is that right?
Yep.
Versus just a $10 fee.
Yep.
A list of all of those, because I didn't have that on my board when I looked it up at home. It
Yep. Give me a second.
Right. It's on the agenda.
wasn't on mine. I copied it out. Can't help it, Jerry, it wasn't.
are you looking for? The fee schedule, I think is
The
what
fee
she's.
schedule, I mean, it said that discuss it and that, but it didn't have the fee schedule itself.
That was a link.
I didn't have a link either. Thank you very much.
That's the clean version. So if you got a question about something that was there, or anything else?
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution amending the village fee schedule.
Second.
Yeah, I don't think it's got a number.
It doesn't.
No.
Sorry, I didn't put numbers on ones I wasn't sure you guys would pass.
Okay, so I
But
just
I
made it
will put
without.
numbers on them if you do.
Okay.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, Maren.
Yeah.
You're welcome,
Appreciate
Ian.
you.
Anytime.
Appreciate you.
What tea leaves are you reading,
Yeah.
Aaron?
Well,
I do
I'm
have
in
a pretty-
Green Bay. It's all beer up here.
I have an astounding failure right here, so.
Well, that wasn't the question that you're drinking, but
What I'd be doing.
that's good to know too.
Fun to go to training.
I'm just,
To be fair, I'm drinking water right now.
I figured as much.
I'm sorry, and also I'm sorry, I missed who the second was. Was it Mike?
Yes,
Yeah.
Gary,
Okay.
Gary made the motion, seconded by Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you need to be over here. We were all remote, you know. Yeah, everybody had one of those like Jeff's got, and God knows what was in them at that point, so.
Lemonade and iced tea is what's in this.
There's an article I don't point out. It's pretty important. The one thing, or actually two things I did not touch on in the fee schedule, the updated fee schedule, are any parks fees or any special event fees. Because that is a whole different conversation that Maren and Gabe and everybody's working on. I just want to make sure we got this stuff in place.
So I did notice that you've got $1,100 in there for the park.
Correct.
Impact fee, which I'm assuming aligns with what we're going to talk about in a minute.
So, well, actually, that's the fee in lieu of park dedication. And so that one's calculated a little differently. They're two separate fees.
Oh,
So
that's fee of in lieu of, okay.
yeah, fee in lieu of park dedication. So we require that developers,
The west side does that.
well, we require that they dedicate 1 acre for every 15 lots that are approved. And so if they come in under that number, something they can do with the approval of the board is pay this fee in lieu of park dedication for every lot that doesn't have a corresponding acre of dedicated land. And so this is one of the ones I have a really good answer for, actually. What I did was I took the average acre per land for what Petrie paid for the Fate Farm. I divided it by 15 and that's what I got. So it would cost us roughly $1,100 per every one of the 15 units to be able to purchase 1 acre of land. That's one of my good ones. But yeah,
So with that explanation, which makes sense. However, if we run into a situation like we had on the west side, where they don't allocate appropriate park space, it's going to be more expensive for for that land, likely after.
if you buy it from the same developer and they've already improved it, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. The thing is, it's already been improved for residential lots.
Well, I understand that's applying in the west side, but I think even in general, if you plat it out and do everything and everything's set up, it's going to be more expensive than that amount
Oh, yeah.
to basically do that. So there's part of me that I think that amount might need to be more than 1,100.
Yeah, I mean, it was 830 something, I want to say.
There's also part of me that it's like, I'd much rather that they include park space. So we don't have to have that conversation. So,
Yes, the whole charging of the fee is dependent upon board approval. So they would have to approve the amount of fees coming in with the plat that was going to be approved. So
So there's no, like, the other fees we have, there's no specific formula that we have to go through. So maybe it would be better to raise that amount. Then hopefully that would make the developer say, no, I'll allocate some land in there versus, you know.
I'm thinking of making it more painful.
Yeah.
I agree with Ian though, to get to that point, they have to get through a couple of hurdles before they even be eligible for that, I think is what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, with the, well, hopefully preliminary plat, but ultimately final plat approval,
Right.
when you're going to do that, that's one of the things you would weigh. I mean, that's one of the things that would be in the report is, based on this many lots divided by 15, this is how many acres they should have. This is how many acres they are planning to dedicate.
Right.
This is what the fees would amount to if you were to charge the fee in lieu of on top of that, and then you would deliberate.
Yeah.
Does that ordinance, does it say usable space? Or can they give you the acre pension fund and say
Usually
there's green space? Well, it's not recreational space.
Not all the time, but usually you get the drinks. I can look up the exact words here in a minute.
And Rick's gonna do some more research, but that motion that failed the 4-1, you may not really have a choice because the auditors may require you to put that money in there anyway, because it's mandatory. So this may be the only time that I do what the auditor tell me or what. So FYI.
Is there a dilemma if we up that fee to say $1,500? Is that a horrible thing to do?
No, you just, if you're gonna charge a fee, you have to have a justification for it, basically. So,
It's gonna cost us more. My justification.
Yeah. but there's kind of a wide, only thing is there's kind of a wide area there to throw a dart at. So you've got like the proven, what I came up with, you've got,
Understand.
whatever it was, 15.5 or whatever he paid per acre there. So you got that divided by 15 lots, boom, that makes sense. But then you've got the opposite side of the spectrum, which is $100,000 for a fully developed residential lot. And that's only going to be 0.2 acres. So if you times by 5, that's $500,000.
Understand.
And now if you've got 15 houses, that's entirely untenable.
Correct.
So it's
Yeah,
somewhere,
I'm not suggesting $100,000.
somewhere there.
1,500 is closer to 1,100 than 100,000 is.
I'm just saying, like.
Like quite a lot closer.
$100,000 might draw some attention, so.
I get it.
So it says subdivisor shall agree on every new preliminary plat of a residential subdivision, an area of land suitable for park or playground purposes, and shall dedicate such land to the public. The amount of land to be provided shall be at least 1 acre of land for every 15 proposed residential units within the plat. However, the total amount of land dedicated for public purposes or otherwise providing for meeting the objectives of this section need not exceed 1/3 of the plat. And it goes on. But that doesn't say it usable, it just
It
says
says it's gotta be suitable for park.
has to be suitable.
It's gotta be suitable. So that's accurate. Do you think we could justify $1,500? Would that be a difficult number?
Yeah, no, I think so, it's fine.
Ian, why are you proposing such a large jump on the cemetery plots?
Because there's a few different reasons. One, our comparables are for the most part, easily twice what we charge right now. That's one. So 2 is that cemeteries are lifelong liabilities. They don't ever go away. Municipalities are who get stuck with them forever and ever more. You can't not take care of them. So they're going to be, that the cemetery we have is going to be the responsibility. There is no Village of Belleville. And so we have to be able to fund that stuff. If we don't collect enough revenues by the time we're done selling plots, game over. We have to have enough money in the cemetery fund to be able to use that money for operations long as humanly possible, because after that, it all goes on the tax roll. Okay. And so that's I jump up the fees to be more in line with where everyone else was for single lots. And there are communities that are way over that.
More than that.
And they also split them up so you can have multiples buried in the same lot and everything, all the stuff we don't do. I didn't overcomplicate it. I just raised it. And then I put a perpetual maintenance fee on there. I think it was $175. I've done that in another community as well. That is totally and entirely to benefit the fund balance. So hopefully we can build the fund balance up to the point where eventually we don't have any more lots to sell. We've got enough money that we can use the interest earnings for operations and till that inevitably runs out as well. Could be 100 years from now, but it will eventually run out.
So who pays a perpetual maintenance fee for a cemetery lot?
It's a one-time charge when you purchase the lot.
Right.
I don't plan on dying soon.
I just don't plan on dying.
Yeah, I don't either, at least not for many, many years.
It's like the first step in financial planning. I plan on dying at some point. Makes it difficult to do any planning if you don't.
Let's go save me with no.
Amen.
So any additional discussion?
Did you want to?
I'd like to, I don't know, Maren loves it when we amend stuff, so.
I'm actually not sure if that's an amendment because what you're adjusting is the schedule and not the resolution. So we can make two separate motions and it'd be easier.
So the separate motion would be I make a motion to update the fee schedule to
Yeah.
to reflect $1,500 for,
Yeah, so why don't you approve the resolution because you've got a
Gotcha.
second on that.
that's fine.
Vote for
Yep,
it.
yeah. Got it. Okay. So the motion on the floor is to approve the the fee schedule that's listed, the 2025 fee schedule. That motion was made by Gary, seconded by Mike. Putting everything together. So all in favor of that? Aye. Opposed?
I abstain for right now. I have to think about all this.
Okay, so 4-0 with one abstention. Okay, so I will make a motion to update the 2025 fee schedule to reflect a fee in lieu of parkland dedication of $1,500 per lot instead of $1,100. Second. Further discussion on that? No?
Oh,
Okay,
I'm sorry, I missed
I
the
made,
second.
I made the motion and Tony made the second.
Thank you.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-0. Next is discuss and consider park impact fees.
So before Ian goes, this was a little bit of a scramble this last week. We do these on new developments, park impact fees of what is the impact of new development on our parks? And then new development, and I will repeat this until the day I die, development should pay for development. If they are going to be adding new things, requiring more resources from the village, they should pay resources provided by the village. So that's what a park impact fee is. But you need to be able to you need to have justification for what we're asking. We can't just say, all right, we want that fee to be $1 million. We don't really know what projects we're doing. So we had to look at core plan, and it also looked like we had to have a facility assessment done. So Ian completed that facility assessment within the last week. So he has hustled us, but to be able to get this in front of you today, props to that.
What time is this up? Oh, I mean.
Yes, let's take it easy. I know this is a lot. Well, this is also really, really important.
Yeah, it is.
It's, that's where I wanted to get it to you guys. We wanted to get it to you guys. Now, the reason that this is issue on timing is this goes on new development. Once a new development is approved and submitted, then this fee can't be enacted to it. So if Petrie decides to annex everything this fall, which he plans to do, and you don't have this developed, you're gonna miss out on 1,100 units for this to impact. So that's $1 million that just went by. Doesn't mean new developments after that would count, but any of the things that we have that's about to be annexed, which is also going to double our size in the next 8 years. 3,200 new residences is what we're expecting from this. You would miss out on. So like, I'm not trying to kill you. Obviously, you guys make the decisions that you need to take. There are big ramifications to this if you vote yes and no. So
It's also important, I think, to note, so this went before Parks and we kind of came up with the,
Well, that's not this part of, I guess it is part of the other part of it, but the reality is this is an existing fee that's been assessed to developers previously, but we have to have projects defined in order to levy the fee. So
It's really stringent process and requirements by state statute. And like I said before, with the fee in lieu of tree planting, we discovered that we were kind of deficient in this area at the same time. We had to stop charging this fee, which was, I think, 1,096.
Yeah,
something like that. But it came from the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan from 2007. And a needs assessment was done as a part of that, and the fee was enacted. And this law had been changed at the state level at least twice since then, adding more responsibilities for the municipality, kind of make it harder to charge the fee and to use the fee. So now you need to have a public facility needs assessment, which is what I developed last week and attached. You need to be able to justify the projects you have based on only the addition of new development. So new development is only paying for new development, not paying for improvements to existing facilities or making up for any current deficits in facilities for current residents, only for new residents. It has to be used, or it has to be collected and used within 8 years. Otherwise, it needs to be refunded. And it can only be used on the projects within the facilities needs. And so.
Does this have to go to a public hearing? Or no?
Yes, it does. And so that's part of the timeliness of this all. This is the first step of just getting it in front of you and making sure you're okay with it. Because full disclosure, notice has already been sent to the paper before deadline to have it posted. If you guys decide you didn't want to do it tonight, we would just call tomorrow morning and go, don't worry about it. If you do want to do it tomorrow is the last time we can really put it out for public view, because it has to be available to the clerk's office for public view and copy for 20 days prior to the public
Hearing.
And then the public hearing is class 1 notice, which, like I said, already has been set in motion, but
When's that tentatively, or the 19th then?
August.
it can be approved at your next board meeting on August 5th.
It's for what?
It can be approved at your August 5th board meeting.
20 days?
yeah, because it's the 15th,
If we do it today, it has to be done.
Okay.
just barely. I had that conversation with them at length about a week ago.
Yeah, it seems
Because we were talking about that. I'm like, we need to put this stuff in motion, because, so again, the issue is we're literally talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees that are paid for by a developer.
You're talking about a total of 1 million, or what is it? Hold on 1 second here.
Part of my hesitation was I didn't want this just to come from staff, to have a public hearing when residents are saying, hey, we had an urban forestry charge and we had a fire protection charge. Now staff is trying to F us over with this new impact fee when they may not know what it is. And so I'm like, I wanted it to come from you all to then say, you're giving us your blessing. It's going to the paper.
This is a lot different than the urban forestry, because
But if you don't.
Somebody reading it, no, it doesn't look that way necessarily.
This is for the park impact fee,
It's a park impact fee, yeah.
Paid for by developers
Or by
due to their cost.
So anytime a developer like puts in, say, hey, I want to build 50 houses, they have to pay an impact fee for each parcel that they're building.
And so the total amount is $1,370,600 based on the projects that we came up with that were 100% attributable to new development. And that would equate to $1,057.56 per unit. So actually less than the previously existing.
So do you want a motion to do that, or are we're just gonna forward this for the public hearing? You don't, because you really aren't, are we adopting this, or we gotta wait till after the public hearing?
We
to
don't,
adopt it?
the fees aren't outlined in here. I
Right.
think it's really just
Yeah.
the,
Content.
Well, maybe adopt the assessment.
The
May not be
assessment.
The worst thing.
Yeah.
Yep, that would work.
Well, then I'll make a motion that we adopt the public facilities needs assessment and impact fee study.
okay. So that motion was by Gary, seconded by Maxine to adopt the public facilities needs assessment and impact fee study. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries 5-0.
On, baby.
Good work, Ian.
Good night tonight, Ian.
Yes.
Do we need to do anything relative to the ordinance?
Well, see, that's something you can do next time too, if you want to. We have as I said, with the other piece that we talked about earlier, have the one line blurb in our ordinance that allows for us to do it. It's just has no specificity whatsoever. This just puts in, add the section explaining exactly what it is, what it's for. So you can do it later. It's not a big deal.
So we don't need to adopt it tonight?
No.
Okay, so we already did E, we already did F. Am I accurate that we're
done.
okay?
About 13.
We're at 13, but that's just it. So, reports from boards, commissions and committees, personnel ad hoc committee. Anything, Mike?
Still plugging away.
We are plugging away. It's getting more and more exciting. If you ever want to come and join,
Yep.
feel free.
Feel free to attend.
When are your meetings?
You guys gotta decide when you want your next meeting to be.
Thanks.
What?
We schedule as we need him, so it's,
Terry reminded me.
Terry's the chair. of
Terry's the chair.
that committee, so Mike and Terry.
Work around it
Yeah,
all.
yeah. Usually it's before other meetings. Parks, Recreation and Forestry Committee. Again, I think the big thing is what we literally just talked about, the Parks Impact Fee, because we talked about that as part of our capital improvement. We'll talk more about it once the public stuff comes out, but the ideas that we came up with relative to potential expenditures, because again, we have to justify the fee that we're charging. That was part of that whole discussion. So we'll see that, I'm sure, at the next board meeting, but it's a lot of individual park improvements. I'm trying to think of other stuff that we put in there. Kayak launches, I think, are in there. Shelters. Do we have some shelters in there? I think upgrades, some sidewalks over at Sugar River Park, I think, are in there. A lot of stuff. So.
Will we ever be moving the pier to its proper place?
The pier.
Yeah, the pier over by the lake entrance,
Pier.
by the dam. You know what I'm talking about? Coming around, they have a pier in there, and it's right where you would put your boat in.
You're talking about the kayak launch.
It's not a kayak launch as far, I don't think. It's supposed to be a pier.
It's a kayak launch. Yeah.
So they're not putting the regular pier in anymore?
We never have. It's the kayak launch that you're talking about when you go. It's the kayak launch that you're thinking of.
I don't think so. I mean, they used to have a pier in there, you could put your boat in. And it's not. Now they put this
Right when you
pier
come into
right
the
in the
park?
middle of it. Yeah.
It's on the far side. It's on the river.
Yeah.
It's the kayak.
Where it's always been. The pier is where it's always been over there.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
the
not.
kayak
It's
launch.
right in the way.
It's the kayak launch. If
If you put
it's the
your boat
kayak
in,
launch.
you're gonna run over the
It's
stupid
yeah,
pier.
it's the kayak launch. So it's got a stand, but then
Yeah,
the launch
okay.
is on the side.
But yes, it is currently sitting right where the
Yeah.
paved area.
Yeah,
is.
yeah, okay.
Raise the back a boat up, so, well, I'm sure we'll move that. If we can, not this year,
How
but
you gonna get to that, but
we have to do something on the shoreline. I'm not saying we can do it like,
yeah, we're not moving this year.
no, it's not moving this year.
Anyway, so
That's where we were instructed to put it. Cause that was a discussion with the guy from, the outfitters.
yeah,
Well, it shouldn't have changed. It's been there for 50 years.
we're not talking about.
But it hasn't been in here, so
I'm sorry, what?
it hasn't been in for 4 years.
That is correct. That is correct. So at least I think it hasn't been. I'm not sure on that.
Anyway, finance and governance, Mike.
We worked on capital improvement proposals, made it through, 2025. Was it?
They made their recommendations, they'll have it one more time, and then it'll come to you, your second meeting of August. There'll be a public hearing for it, and then, we'll go through it one more time, and then on August 15th, let me just check my, 19th, August 19th, you will approve it. And then the capital will be done for this year. Something might be added here and there if something big comes up, but then capital's done. And then starting the next meeting, we'll start going through the operating budget.
And
But that means the biggest part though is done, is the capital.
That's good.
Ready to cut some services.
yeah, exactly. Okay, next, plan commission, we talked about, I think, pretty much everything tonight.
Plan commission will have a pretty big one next meeting. All with a lot of future stuff coming up.
Gotcha.
He hasn't put in any more developments.
It's the stuff on the west side.
Okay, the stuff he's already, 55 years,
The
whatever.
Baker's Woods phases,
Gotcha. Okay, so.
and it's the lot that they wanted to rezone from commercial.
And the one lot in the entryway that we're talking about is part of it too.
Yep.
All right, next, communications, miscellaneous business, any news and announcements? Upcoming community events, I know,
Rained on your parade on that one.
I'm sorry,
I said we rained on your parade on that one.
it's not my parade. Whatever, it's raining anyway.
Brother Love is Sunday.
Brother Love Sunday, music in the park tomorrow night. What else is going on tomorrow night? There's something else. There's Chick-fil-A, yeah, farmer's market's running, but I think there's a Chick-fil-A food truck coming.
They're trying it. It's a
Yep.
new thing. See how it goes.
I think 10% of those Chick-fil-A proceeds are supposed to be donated to somebody in the village. I don't know if they've decided on which group yet, though. Chick-fil-A.
Very cool.
Do the new farmer's market hours apply?
So the new farmers market is the hours are the same for the farmers market. It just the adjustment is just to allow for more setup and takedown of the vendors without interruptions.
Wishful thinking, Maren.
Thank you.
You know.
There is a question, it's the hours, the police department got a complaint that they were there like at 6:31 breaking down, and that's why the suggestion was to adjust the hours. There's also a complaint that's been filed about parking on that parcel. And
know who made the complaint.
it's, according to the complainant, it's not posted for parking. We told him it's not posted for no part, Is that parcel open for parking for vendors, patrons, and the music in the park?
I'm making the call, yes, but.
I don't know why we wouldn't. But,
So it's public land owned by the village. The music in the park is directly sponsored by the library, a village department, whatever. And the farmer's market is now a village department. So village departments are allowing people to park on village land during village events. I don't see any problem with that at all.
I don't either, and that's one of the reasons why we adjusted the hours is to prevent issues and again, the parking. I mean, it's petty on this complainant's part, but
Just remind him, he
just-
doesn't have Esquire or JD behind his name. He doesn't know what he's talking.
I'm not mentioning any names, Gary.
I know, you don't have to.
What are the hours of the farmer's market? Does anybody?
There you go.
Maren, what are the hours of the farmer's market? Is it 4:30 to
It's 4:30 to 6:30.
6:30?
Thank you.
All right, any future agenda items?
Yeah, you got, the next meeting, you're gonna have a lot. We get a lot of Brian during this season.
Yes, I was finding a house up here. It'd be quicker, so.
Yeah. He was already bragging to me about the zero turn that he bought, so he ain't moving. We'll be doing their annual consultant review. GEC will be doing their annual consultant review. GEC is zoning and building inspector, so if you have questions on either of those services, save those for that meeting. The TID 3 project plan amendment again. And then discuss, consider, I hope my goal was to get the future ready strategic plan, like the pretty stuff done, so you can just pass it. And then Maren has a beer garden ordinance amendment. As of right now, that's all I have for the August 5th agenda. The August 19th will be the 2025 through 29 capital improvement budget. And then Pelletier will be in on the 19th to talk about the garbage can.
Yeah, the fifth will be all the stuff for the kid.
It's the most, quite a bit of the wrap up of it.
Yeah. Joint reviews board's meeting before that, right?
Which one?
The joint review board's meeting before the before the board meeting on the 5th?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Maxine to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 9:01 PM.
We made good time tonight.